Priyanka Ghanore, Director in Skill Development, BVI Youth Club, working for Accenture as application developer. I'm Kuchipudi dancer, henna artist, and I will be your host for today. कहते हैं कि बच्चे भगवान के रूप होते हैं. With that, let's welcome Lakita Basant Rangadhol, who is studying in first grade from Bangalore. She is learning chess from Nalanda Academy and also began to pursue Bharatanatyam and Hindustani classical vocal music.
ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्.
Thank you, Lakita. For the success and upliftment of the program, let's be silent for 2 minutes. Thank you so much, everyone. So now let's welcome Sudhir Bhakre sir, President of BVI Bangalore Central. He's an engineering graduate from Osmania University and has 25 plus years of experience in IT industry. Currently, he is working for an MNC in leadership role. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Priyanka, and good morning to the guests who have joined us from US, and good evening to all others who have joined from India and rest part of the world. First of all, thank you. It's great seeing so many people onto this call, and the reason this was arranged along with Youth Club was the belief that our youth today is aspiring for, like I mean, availing the best higher education. Now, with the availing the best higher education could be from some premium institutes in India, and most of them aspire to get higher education from countries like US, where we already have the the best institutes. Like I mean, if you talk about business school, the Harvard Business School, which is the best in the world, we have Pooja Doijode, who joined us from US, right? And she is going to be the speaker for this event. She has herself, let me cover some introduction for Pooja. She has herself, like I mean, done her graduation, post graduation, MS from US, right? She has done her schooling and pre-university from Shimoga, and worked for, she did engineering from CMS College in Electronics and Communication, BMS Engineering College, which is in Bangalore. And post that, she worked for Robert Bosch for an year. And now, like I mean, post that, she actually took up higher education, which is MS from second Masters in Computer Network from University of Southern California in the year 2014. Right? And on personal front, Pooja is married to Shivraj. He's from Hubli. He's a civil engineer, and he has done civil engineering from BMS College of Engineering, and further higher studies, masters in construction management from Purdue University. On talking about hobbies, she is, like I mean, her hobbies include hiking. Her hobbies include reading novels, painting, and gardening. So, with this, I hand over to Pooja. Pooja, welcome, and I hand over to Pooja to cover rest of the session, enabling the aspiring youths to understand the elements which are involved in, like I mean, taking up higher education, which includes how to choose, what are the exams that you need to prepare for, some tips and tricks for the exams like TOEFL, GRE, right? Similarly, how to choose the right university. Most of the youth go and approach the agent, and agent indirectly sells what he gets commission into, right? How to choose the right university, how to get what kind of visa options are there, how to choose the what options do exist for funding from um, from government of India, right? Maybe student loan and all. So every aspect till settling in US and availing green card is going to be covered by Pooja. Pooja, over to you.
Thank you, Sudhirji. Thank you for introducing me to the audience. And I'd like to start by extending my greetings to Shri Narayan Rao Tatuskarji, who's the founder, Padmakar Bhardeji, our BVI National President, Priyanka Bhardeji, National President, BVI Youth Club, and Sudhir Pakreji, thank you so much. And thank you to the whole BVI Club for organizing this. I really wish there was something like this when I was going through the process of applying to masters in the USA. So I really help this hopes. I really hope this helps you all. So with that, let me start sharing my screen. Okay, wonderful. So with that, let's get started. So the first step in this in your journey to studying masters is the decision. Like you have to make a decision that you want to study masters. The reasons could be personal, and your I mean motivation could be anything. And once you have decided, you can the next step is to decide where do you want to do it. Like there are options today. Not I mean you can do it in US, you can do it in Australia, you can do it in Canada. There are like so many countries which offer really good programs. Now, once you've decided that you want to do masters in the US, where do you begin? Like, how do you tackle this whole process, right? So, this is what I'm going to cover. So, first thing, you start with your GRE and TOEFL preparation, and you give the exams. And once you're done with the exams, then you'll go ahead with the application process. And let me tell you that the application process is a little bit involved. I'll put a one-liner here. It has a lot of steps involved. So I'll cover that in detail, but the second step is application process, and then once you've applied to universities, then let's say you got admit from 4 or 5 universities, then how do you zero in one university and how do you go to the next step, which is finances. Finances where is where how do you cover the cost of MS and cost of living in the United States. You can either do a student loan or you can uh, I'll talk about options when I get there. And after you're done, after you've decided how are you going to cover your expenses and cover your masters cost for masters, I'll talk about visa process, like how do you apply for visa, what kind of visa do you need, and what the visa provides you. And after we've covered that, we'll talk a little bit about course structuring, because there are a lot of courses to choose from when you're at a university. So you really need to structure them so that helps you in securing the internship or a full time job. And once you've talked about that, we'll move on to on-campus jobs, internships, and full-time jobs. Like how do you apply for these? How do you network? How do you get these jobs? And what do these pay? Right, I'll cover all that. And after that, we'll talk about the infamous H-1B visa. I'll tell you what it is and why it is infamous, and we'll talk about green card and then the US citizenship. And so if you have any questions, I'd suggest that you note it down, and I will give you like 10 minutes for Q&A. You can go ahead and ask me those questions then, and if not, you can always reach out to me, so we'll cover it then. So let's move on to these. Let's talk about these things in detail. Now, the first thing is your exams, like GRE and TOEFL. You can either do TOEFL or you can do IELTS. I gave TOEFL exam. Now, the first thing in GRE preparation is you can give this exam anytime during your engineering or anytime, but preparation is a little bit involved. So I suggest that you take this when your course load is minimum during engineering, which is usually around 6 to 8 semesters. So I recommend that you start early, like give this exam early. And and when it comes to coaching, you can like either do self study or attend coaching classes. I recommend attending coaching classes because they guide you really well on what to do, how to study, and how to approach this whole thing. And some of the books which I found really interesting was this word power made easy. So GRE has two sections, which is verbal and quant. Quant is logical mathematics. It is relatively easy. You can do it. But the harder things for us is verbal because English not being our first language, since English is not our first language, it takes a little bit of effort for us to get to understand those words, and there are a lot of words which we don't use in our day to day. So for those things, I really recommend Word Power Made Easy book. And when you're preparing for GRE exam, there are mock tests you can give, and always finish this mock test in one go, because GRE exam is 3 hours 45 minutes or 3 hours 30 minutes long, and it takes effort to train your brain. I mean, you have to sit there and think for like 3.5 hours. That takes some training. So really practice and complete this mock test in one go, so you're prepared for the actual exam. And another thing about GRE exams is that at the end of the exam, it will ask you for 4 universities. So you can shortlist that 4 universities during your GRE preparations, and you can send these GRE scores for free to these 4 universities. And let me talk about the actual exam a little bit. Now, GRE exam costs about $185, and like I said, the duration is 3 hours 30 minutes. And out of the total score, which is 340, I would say a good score is anywhere between 310 to 320. But if you're outside, if you're not, if you're close to 310, I would say that is okay as well. And the score is valid for 5 years. So that's why I say that even if you're not sure that you take up higher studies in the US, and if you don't mind paying that cost, I would say that give this exam as early as possible, finish it, get your scores, and keep it handy in case you want to pursue higher studies in the US, right? And if you want to send your scores to additional universities, it is like a $30 per university fee that you'll pay. And if you're not happy with the GRE with your GRE score, you can always retake the exam. And I've put some detail over here. And there are a few sections in the GRE exam which you can like really Google it, and it'll tell you all the details about it. So with that, let's next talk about TOEFL or IELTS. And this is also a required examination. You can either give TOEFL or IELTS. And since I personally gave TOEFL, I know a little bit. I know the TOEFL examination a little bit better. So it costs about $190, and duration is again like 3 hours. And it's a test of English knowledge. So you'll have a reading section, listening, speaking, and writing. And out of the total score of 120, always aim for like 100 plus. That's a good score. And now with this, let's talk about the next process, right? So let's say you gave your GRE exams, you got a good score, you gave TOEFL exams, you have good scores. Now what do you do next? So next step is the application process. Now, before you start applying to colleges, there are a few things that you should know. Now, there are questions like, "Hey, do I need to work before I start my master's program?" Right? Now, the thing there is, work experience is not required, but it is good to have. Why do I say it is not required, but it's good to have? It's because, let's say you have work experience in certain area, but you're doing masters in completely different area. For example, let's say you worked in automotive domain, but your masters is in computer networks. In that case, even if you work in India, it is not going to help you in during your master's program or in securing a job after masters. So keep that in mind. But if your work that if the job that you're doing in India really ties to the master's program, then it might help you a little bit in getting a full-time job or an internship. So something to keep in mind, but it is not absolute requirement. And then the next step is, before you start applying, I would say shortlist 5 or 6 universities and shortlist these based on your field of study, right? If you're in mechanical engineering, there are certain universities which offer really good courses, and those universities might not offer the best computer science courses. So based on your field of study, you pick the universities, and when you're picking the universities, also keep your GRE scores, your undergrad CGPA, your TOEFL scores, and also if you're also keep in mind the cost of living and job prospects of that university. So based on all these aspects, you can either do the research on your own, or you can network to people who are already there studying in these universities. So based on that, always have 5 to 6 universities, and you can break these universities down. So basically have one or two dream universities where you would absolutely love to attend if they accept you, and 2 to 3 medium where and maybe they'll accept you, and 1 to 2 safe where you know that you will for sure get into those universities. So that's how you break it down. And the third thing to know before you start applying is when do you want to join these universities, right? There are two options at your disposal. So one is spring semester, one is spring admissions, one is fall admissions. Spring semester runs usually from January to May, and fall is from August to December. Now the best option is fall semester, because if you start your masters in spring, you will miss the opportunity for doing internship in the US. That is because most of the universities require that you finish 2 semesters before you can start applying for internships, right? So if you start in spring, you will finish your semester in May, and then summer is when you actually get an internship and work on your internship. Because you have completed only 1 semester till summer, you will not be eligible for internships. So something to keep in mind. And if you want to see more advantages and disadvantages, I've put a link down here. You can go through those, and there are a lot of websites today on Google. You can just do a Google search, and it'll show you a lot of options and why one is better than the other. But my recommendation is always go for fall, because a lot of universities are open in fall. The intake is better. And also keep in mind that not universities don't offer all the courses during spring. So fall is a better time to join. So let's say you know all things. You've shortlisted universities. You know when you want to join the universities. So once you're clear on all that, the next step is actual application process, right? So for when you begin your actual application process, what do you need? So the first thing you need is something called statement of purpose. This is a letter you would write on your own, which lists who are you as a person, what is your motivation behind masters, and what takes you, what is the higher purpose, like how do you want to apply these masters in your life, in your career. So that is something. It's basically you're trying to market yourself to the university. And the second thing you need is 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. This is the letter. These are the recommendations written by either your head of department, or if your manager, if you're currently working, or your professors. They basically recommend you to the university, telling university why they should give you an admit. That is the letter of recommendation. And next thing is you have your GRE and TOEFL scores ready. And once you have that, be sure to update your resume. And you need your academic transcripts, like a mark sheet of every semester for BE, along with the 10th and 12th mark sheets. And you can also put details of any internship or any work experience or extracurricular activities that you may have done in India. So once you have all these, the application process itself, like you can actually do it on your own. But if you find it like a black box, or you don't really know where to start, the website is really confusing. When you If those are the things that bother you, then you can definitely go to a consultancy and have them apply it for you. That's what I did. I went to a consultancy because this step was really unknown for me. And if you're doing it on your own, you can upload these documents and mail the hard copy out to university offices. And there are deadlines for each of the universities. So keep those deadlines in mind. And it differs from university to university. So keep that in mind when you're applying. And yeah, so one more thing to be aware of is that let's say you decided to go to consultancy, right? Now the consultancies have tie-ups with the universities, and these are the universities which are not really that great. So, and when you go to consultancies, they really push you to apply to these universities because they are getting some financial gain out of it. So just be aware of that. That's why before you go to the consultancies, have your list of universities ready, and what no matter what the consultant says, stick to your list, and because I'm very sure you would know better by then. So just stick to the list. Now, let's say you apply to the universities before the deadlines, and the universities then will give you a decision, usually between late January to late April. Let's say you've applied before mid December, so then then the university will start giving the decisions in late January to late April. So now, let's say out of 5 universities that you applied to, you got 4 acceptance letters. And if accepted, the university will give you something called I-20. Now, this is a document which will tell you exactly how many credits you need to complete masters and what is the cost per credit or per semester. It depends from university to university. Some universities do cost per credit, some universities do cost per semester. And I'll basically tell you what is the total cost for master's program. So, for example, for me, when I applied to USC in 2014, my I-20 cost was 55,000, and this is like an estimated cost. You mostly come under that cost. The total cost usually comes well within that cost. So that's just the estimate from the university. And let's talk a little bit about funding opportunities, right? So let's say your profile is exceptionally well. You have like a outstanding CGPA, you have like good GRE scores, and you had a really good statement of purpose and LORs, right? Your profile is really strong. In that case, the university might decide to extend you funding opportunities. What I mean by that is they might reduce your fees a little bit, or they might give you an opportunity to be a teaching assistant or a research assistant. Now, teaching and research assistant, the university doesn't really hand it out the T and RA ship, but it will just tell you that you're eligible. Now, what you do next is you reach out to the professors that, I mean, on a university website will list the professors that are working there and the kind of research they're doing. So you can reach out to them personally, let them know that you're really interested in what they're doing, and you can be of some help in their research. In that case, you might get a research assistantship, and if not, you might get a teaching assistantship. Teaching assistantship is where you grade the undergrad papers, or you help the professor when the professor is not able to teach the class, things like that. And that comes with a really good stipend, so that will help you get your fees down and also to cover some of the cost of living. So the next thing to talk about is, does the university name matter, right? It does matter, because this is the name that is going to stick with you throughout your career. And more than that, you build a network when you're at a university, right? Like if you are at a MIT, all the people around you are like geniuses, so that really matters. And this is the professional network that will stay with you throughout your career. So I say that university name definitely matters. So if you have like 4 or 5 universities you got your acceptance from, choose wisely. And yeah, once you've like finalized on a university, what do you do next? So next step is finances, right? Like now you've secured an admit. What do you do next? So next thing is to talk about your finances. Like how do you cover the cost of your MS? Because MS is a big deal. Like it will cost you a lot. So the first thing is student loan. This is what I did. I got a student loan from State Bank of India, and their interest rate at that time was 11 to 13%. So let's talk about how much would you actually need, right? Now, so how much would you need is based on your I-20, what is listed on your I-20, what is mentioned in your I-20, plus the cost of living. And cost of living varies depending on which state the university is in. So based on that, you'll have like a rough cost of living estimate. And when you when you let the bank know that this is your cost of living and this is your I-20 cost, the bank may accept to cover 100% of your cost, or it may cover part of the cost. Like for example, let's say bank decides only to cover the cost of your master's, right, which is the second bullet point here. So what do you do in that case? So let's say your student loan only covers the cost of MS. In that case, the other option you can do is to cover the cost of living. You can do an on-campus job. uh, so this is something that you can do to cover cost of living. In this case, you'll have MS to cover your master cost of MS, and on campus to support yourself. And in the third case, if your parents can afford it and you don't want to pay the interest rate to the bank, you would rather pay it back to your parents. In that case, there's option 3, which is parent sponsor. And keep in mind that if you're taking student loan, Like depending on how much student loan you're taking, your repayment time frame could be anywhere between 1.5 years to 4.5 years. 1.5 years is when you make aggressive payments and you want to finish the loan as soon as possible. That is when, I mean, you can finish it off in 1.5 years. So that is something to keep in mind. With that, the next step is visa process. So let's say you've got a student loan, bank approved your student loan, and you have a letter from the bank manager saying they will cover the cost of masters for you. What do you do next? So next step is the F1 visa. Now you need this visa to enter the United States as a student. So F1 visa is required, and you can either apply on your own, or if you have joined a consultancy, the consultancies usually also cover the visa process. They apply it for you and they prepare you for the interview. And the total cost you're looking at is about $510, which includes the cost of DS-160, which is the visa application itself. And there's something called service fee, which is applicable only for students. So that is the total cost you're looking at. And some of the documents required for this interview is all the documents that we talked about during application process, like SOP, LORs, resume, all your GRE scores, TOEFL scores, and things like that. And along with those documents, you would also need the I-20, which is the acceptance document from the university, which says how much does your master's cost and things like that. And with that, you'll also take the loan approval letter with you to the visa interview, or bank statements if you are if your parents are sponsoring it. And also, the last thing to know is that a visa officer will ask you some questions, so be ready to answer those. So prepare well for the visa interview, for the F1 visa interview to be specific. Now the visa process, in the next thing to know is F1 visa, right? So F1 visa, when you are on F1 visa, there are things you can do and you cannot do. So I'll cover the things you can do first, and I'll talk about the things you cannot do later. So what does F1 visa provide? So it provides something called curricular practical training. It is called CPT, and optional practical training, which is called OPT. Now, if you want to do internships or co-ops during your master's program, CPT comes into picture, right? So this is something which occurs before the student ends the master's program. And for CPT, for you to be eligible to take up internship, you must complete 2 semesters on minimum credits, which are listed on the university webpage, and it depends from university to university. So keep that in mind. And so CPT is basically for your internships and co-ops during masters. And optional practical training is the next thing to talk about. So this comes into picture after you complete your master's program. So let's say you've completed your master's program. Now you're ready to start your work, and you're looking for jobs, and you got the job. That's when the OPT kicks in. And the most important thing about this OPT is that if you have chosen a non-STEM course, so STEM is basically science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? So most of the core branches of engineering, like computer science, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, masters in all these fall under STEM category. There are non-STEM courses, which is MBA or MS in finance, or few other management courses. Those come in non-STEM category. For non-STEM category, you can only work for 1 year in the United States. After your 1 year ends up, if you haven't changed your visa to H1B, you will have to leave the US after you finished 1 year. Now, let's say you are in the more traditional STEM course, STEM courses. In this case, you will get 3 years to keep working in the United States, right? So MS is basically, so F1 visa is basically 2 years of your master's course, and they'll give you plus 3 years to for you to for your job to gain your job to work experience. Now, with F1 visa, you can also work on campus. And when I say on campus jobs, it only means the jobs you can do at the university, any establishment that belongs to university, or any jobs within the university. And what you cannot do when your F1 visa is work at any establishment that is not part of the university. Example, you cannot work at a Domino's or a Pizza Hut when you are in the US as a student, right? That leads to deportation, and US might blacklist you and never let you enter the country again. So just keep these things in mind when you're applying. And the most important thing again is the STEM courses. Make sure that the program that you're applying to, like the field of study falls under STEM. So make sure of that. Now, the next thing to talk about is, let's say you applied to the universities, you got your funding in place, and you got your visa approved. Now, the next thing to think about is course structure, right? So, why do I say this? Now, in master's program, few universities require you to complete prerequisites before you start the actual master's program. So see if the course that you're applying to has any prerequisites. So if there are any prerequisite, you might want to finish those first, get it out of the way before you can start taking other courses. And the second thing to keep in mind, and this one's a really important one, is course availability. In masters, the courses tend to fill up really quickly, right? So before you are done deciding which courses you want to take that semester, courses might have filled up already. So in that case, always register for courses as soon as possible. And even if you're not sure you're going to take that course, like first register, because there is a chance for you to drop out of that course in the first 2 weeks after the course starts. So always register as soon as possible, and don't, even if you're unsure, like register and then maybe drop out later. And the next thing, when you when you want to like structure your courses, also think about like internships, right? There are plenty of courses to choose from when you are doing your masters, so take those courses which really help you get an internship and full time. And also, because you do your internship after finishing 2 semesters, you would want to complete the most important courses in the first 2 semesters, so that they help you get an internship, so that they help you clear your interviews and things like that. So that is something to keep in mind. So once you have your visa in place, start thinking about what courses you want to take, and start talking to people who are in the university, like connect with them on Facebook or LinkedIn, and start asking them questions, and based on their responses, and talk to multiple people, not just one person. So based on all that, like have a rough structure in mind. This will really help you when you are in the US and ready to start your MS. Right, something to keep in mind. And so the next thing is on-campus jobs, internships, and full time. Right? How do you apply to this? What do these pay? Let's talk about that. Now, on-campus jobs, they really help you cover the cost of living in the US. And if you ask me, it is a huge chunk of your masters. It is really helpful in covering the cost of living. So how do you apply to these, right? So to apply to this, basically you can network. That is, if you have roommates, you can ask them, or if you connect to someone in that university, you can ask them if they are doing any part-time jobs in the university, and you can ask them to recommend you to an open position. And if they know of, if they're open position and they know there's a requirement, they will let you know, and that way you can apply to the job and get hired. And these are the jobs that are related to the university. And what I mean by that is that your paycheck should come from the university. Otherwise, it means that you're working outside of the university, and that might lead to deportation and blacklisting. So just make sure that it is part of the university and your paycheck is really coming from the university. And when I say on-campus jobs, you can only work part-time, and part-time is 20 hours per week. You cannot, this is up to 20 hours. The maximum you can work is 20 hours, and you cannot work an hour more than that per week. And this is per week, just FYI. And this we already talked about, like how to look for these jobs. And yes, some of the universities really have a dedicated web page where they list all the on-campus jobs, and you can apply to those online. And if they pick your application, you will be called for an interview. And that's how I got my first on-campus job. I just applied on the university website, and I got an interview. And after that interview, I had a on-campus job. And how much does these on-campus jobs pay, right? So usually it is between $10 and $20, depending on where the university is located. For example, if you're studying in Purdue University, which is a college town in itself, then your cost of living is less, and accordingly the university will pay you a little bit less, because that usually is enough to cover your cost of living. And but let's say if you're in Los Angeles and your cost of living is really high, then university will pay a little bit more. So that way you usually can cover your cost of living, and you will have a little bit extra, which is savings, I guess. So yeah, that really helps. And for example, these are the jobs which where you work in university bookstore or dorm cafeteria or library, or there are other things in the university that I mean, I haven't listed here, but there are other things you can work on. And the next thing is teaching and research assistantship. Like I talked during the application process. So this is something the university offers you if your profile, if your overall profile is exceptional. And in this case, not all. Okay, I'd like to also mention that not all the universities offer teaching and research assistantship. For example, most of the private universities, like University of Southern California, does not offer teaching or research assistantship. So keep that in mind. Not all the universities offer these, and usually they pay more than on-campus jobs, and that might help you cover part of the cost of the masters itself, along with the cost of living. So that if you get a T or RA, that is like really good. Okay, so next thing is internship, right? So let's say you've finished 2 semesters and you're ready to apply to internships and you get a job. So how do you actually apply to internships, right? So there's something called, and let me say this first of all, university does not guarantee you a internship or a full time. Any university, Harvard, MIT, USC, none of the universities uh, offer you any sort of guarantee. So with that, you're on your own. But what university offers is something called career fair. They organize career fair where lot of companies attend, and you can directly hand over your resume to them, and they will shortlist it, and I mean they will go through all the resumes, and if you're shortlisted, they'll call you for an interview. So that is one way of applying, and the other way is through referral. So let's say you know someone in the US, or your family knows someone in the US. You can reach out to them. It does not matter if you have been in touch with them or not. Anyone you know, just connect to them, ask them to refer you. And the way you ask them to refer you is basically you have to do some work first. Like for example, there's a company every company has their page listing internships and full-time opportunities. So you go through those, shortlist the ones that you are interested in, note down the job ID, and ask someone to refer you to these job ID. That person may be known to you through your family, or if you don't know anyone in the US, there's always LinkedIn for this. You can reach out to a person who's working in that company and ask them to refer you. I mean, you do have to. I mean, all you can do is ask them. Like they might decide to refer you or not. So that really depends. But that's one way. And the final way is basically for you to go on the company website and just submit your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile, and just apply on your own. But that is the least effective way, in my opinion. So referrals is the best way to get an internship. So build your network from the day one you're in the university, right? If you know anyone, like any seniors, right? If you have your roommates and they're like in the second year of their masters, like keep in touch with them. They are the ones who will really help you get an internship or a full time. So your network really matters. So that's the bottom line really. And how much do these internships pay? So the pay range is between like $40 to $60 per hour, and internships usually last 2.5 to 3 months. So you will make a good chunk of money during your internship, and you can work for 40 hours a week or more. And sometimes if you're working for more, there's something called overtime pay, which is 1.5 times the regular pay. So keep that in mind. And again, like I mentioned, university does not guarantee any sort of internship or full time. That is something to keep in mind. You're always on your own. So next thing to talk about is your full-time job. So after completing your master's program, now let's say you're ready to start working, that is when your OPT kicks in. And during OPT, you can work for 40 hours a week or more. There is no limit really. And university again organizes career fairs, but it does not guarantee you any sort of full-time job. You're on your own. And how to apply to these. So the best way to get a full-time job is, let's say you got an internship, then you can perform really well during that internship and have the employer convert that internship to the to full-time job, right? That really depends on the on a lot of things, like how is the economy that year, like, and does the employer have a requirement for a full-time position that year. So that depends on a lot of things, but that's the best way to go about it. And otherwise, there are career fairs, and you can also always go through referrals or apply directly on the company's website. And once you get an interview for full-time job, it is really up to your interview performance for you to convert that interview from for you to convert that interview to a full-time job. So prepare really well once you get an interview, right? I mean, you need to really start preparing after your second semester for full-time jobs, but like make sure that your interview performance is good. Now, here are the things to keep in mind when you're applying for full-time job. Okay, so first thing is, the full-time job that you're applying to has to be related to your master's program. For example, you cannot do masters in mechanical engineering but apply to a job that requires computer science engineering. Some employers might accept you, but you won't get a visa extension if you do something like that. So your work has to be related to your master's program. And like I said, that if the MS program that you have enrolled in is a STEM course, only then you'll get to work for 3 years in the United States on F1 visa. And before your F1 visa runs out, you need to apply for something called the H1B visa, which is usually called a work visa. And you need to do this ASAP, because H1B visa is lottery based. So it really depends on your luck. So I would say, if you have 3 years on F1 visa, you get 3 attempts to apply for H1B, and you can apply to H1B only in the month of April. So keep that in mind. So apply for H1B visa as soon as you start working, and really just reach out to employer. The employer will know what to do. And let's talk about pay range, because this is the important aspect, right? Because I've invested so much in this master's program. What are you getting out of it? Now, depending on the field of engineering, each field, the pay in each field varies. Like mechanical engineering might not pay you that much compared to computer science. And because I'm in computer science, let me talk about the total compensation in the field if you've done your master's in the field of computer science. So the starting salaries after your master's is it could be anywhere between $140,000 to $195,000, and this is as of March 2023. This range keeps going up every year because of inflation and all the adjustments. So for this year, this is the starting range. And if you want to know more about other fields of engineering, like civil engineering, mechanical, or biomedical, or any other branches, you can always go to the link that I mentioned here, this website called levels.fy. You can go there and see for yourself how much you can, what is the starting salary for each field of engineering and each position in each of the companies, right? So take a look at those. That will really help you estimate your student loan repayment time frame and things like that. So with that, let's talk a little bit about H1B, green card, and citizenship, right? So what do you do once you're... So as I mentioned, F1 only offers you 3 years of time to work in the US. So after that, what do? How do you continue working in the US? So for that, you need something called the H1B visa. And you will apply for this visa the moment you start working for an employer. And because this is lottery based only for the first time. Once the lottery is picked once the lottery is picked, you can keep extending that visa next time. And for the subsequent times, there's no lottery. You can just apply DS 160 and get it extended. And so let me tell you the odds a little bit. So every year in the US, there are like 484,000 applications. And out of that 484,000 applications, only 85,000 applications get selected. So your odds are about like 17%. So you really need a little bit of luck there. And let's say you've got a lottery, then your H1B duration starts. And H1B duration is basically 6 years. which is they'll give you 3 years first, and then after your 3 years runs out, you will ask for extension, which is 3 more years. And before you run out of the H-1B visa, you really need to ask your employer to apply for a green card for you. And once the green card is applied, you can just keep extending your visa until you get your green card. And the important thing about green card is that there's a huge wait time for people who are born in India, right? The wait time currently is 18 to 25 years. So it is a really long time. And to overall to be a citizen of this country of United States, you are looking at roughly 28 to 35 years since the time you start masters. That is a really long time, and I would suggest that if you're thinking of doing masters in the United States, keep that number in mind and compare it with other countries where you could do your masters. So with that, those were some of the things I wanted to say. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have questions in each of this step. So if you have anything, you can ask me now, or if you prefer to ask me directly, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or Gmail.
It has been listed in the chat box, Pooja. Questions
Okay,
are.
so let's go to the chat.
Can I? Hi Pooja, this is Sai here. One small question is there, please. So, what is the motivation for you to go to US first?
So first thing was I was in ENC. I was working for Bosch, and before I started working, I thought embedded was the field I really want to work in. That was where my interest lies and things like that. That's what I thought. But once I started working, I realized that this is not what I want to do, and that's when I started talking to friends. And one of my friends was working at Akamai, and she was in computer networks domain, and she was telling me what she does at her company. That was something really interesting, and that sparked my interest. And then there are also friends who were pursuing masters, who had gone through this application process and loan process. So, and when I took a look at University of Southern California, they had a really good computer network program, and that is something that sparked an interest, and that was the motivation behind me doing masters.
Probably we had a lot of classmates gone to US.
Yeah. I mean, ours was the first batch where a lot of us decided to do masters. Some of them went to pursue masters immediately after engineering, and because I wasn't sure, I took some time to work, and only after that I was able to figure out what I want to do. So yeah.
So one thing you said salary range for MS computer science is $140,000 to $195,000. Okay, but again that depends upon the company. So if not all companies offer so much, and again also depends upon the location.
No, it does depend on the location, but let's say you're in the San Francisco area, right, which is the most expensive region in the US. In that case, the companies might offer you about $160,000. So that cost is always adjusted. And if you're in somewhere in the remote Middle East, not Middle East, Midwest of the US, then then your cost of living is also less. You don't need so much money to keep up your cost of living. In that case, it balances out. But I would say for computer science, the starting salary is high. So if your daughter or son is in that area, there's nothing really to worry about, and there are plenty of jobs. Even though US is in recession right now, there are plenty of jobs, so nothing to worry. They will get a job.
And see, once you say your company start applying for green card to get I-140. I-140 is where we are, suppose your spouse want to get employed. She is educated. You require I-140. So how much time it takes once your employer start applying for green card application?
So when you start your green card application, it takes you about a year to get that I-140 document. because they all do all sorts of background check, because they have to also check that there is no other US citizen who's interested in this position. So they have to do a job advertisement, collect the resumes, maybe interview them. So there's a long process. It usually takes about a year. And once you get that I-140 document, if the spouse wants to work, they can apply for something called the H4 visa, and that is the dependent visa. H1B dependent is H4, and once they have that, they can start working. I'm sorry, Anandji, you're muted.
Thank you, Anand, for this question. So we have quite a few questions on the chat window also. Let's be fair. Pick some of those. I'll try and moderate these for you, Pooja. This first question that has come, will you be able to share this PowerPoint presentation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can share it with you all. I mean,
you can share it with us, and we will try to pass it on to the people on the
chat. Yes, that would be best.
Thank you. Second question, I'm just moving fast. This is from a parent, Akshata. The question is, Madam, my daughter is studying BE in biotechnology. Usually people say there's no scope for it in India. What about US?
There is scope for it in the US, biotechnical. So I have a friend of mine who is in the biotechnical domain, and she's working here. She's doing some really good work. So I would say there's plenty of opportunities in the US for biotechnical. So nothing to worry about. And the starting salary ranges are also good. I mean, so I mentioned for masters in computer science, but for those who are not in computer science, the salaries are usually around $120,000. Let's say $105,000 to $120,000. It could be more. So yeah, nothing to worry about.
Okay. Thank you, Pooja. This next question from Anita Sarvade. Ma'am, you can correct. Your question was whether the same procedure holds good for citizens too. Is it senior citizens?
No, it is OCIs, basically overseas citizen of India. It means that they are citizens of America but staying in India.
It is applicable for them also, ma'am. But for them, the benefit is that I don't know. There's something called in-state fees. For example, if they relocate to the US, or they have their or the kid is in the US studying their masters, I believe after a year they can apply for in-state tuition fees, and that will reduce their fee significantly. That's the advantage. But other than that, they can skip the visa process if the kid is a US citizen. But the rest of it remains the same.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita, for that question. Thank you, Pooja. Next up we have is this is from a student, Ishan Chawate. I'm pursuing BTech in CSC at JNTU Hyderabad. My doubt is, do we require any sports certificate for extracurricular or internship certification? Gets job done.
If you have certificate, it is really good, which means you can prove what you've done. And internship, if you have a certificate, good. But otherwise, you can also get a letter of recommendation from your manager, which indirectly says that you have been working, and so that is enough, in my opinion. You don't really need a certificate, but if in case you have it, use it.
Thanks, Pooja. We'll just move to people who want to unmute. Prithvi has raised a hand. Sir, please go ahead. You can ask your question.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
Hi, sir.
We can hear.
Hi, Pooja. I have two questions to ask you. One is, can you suggest any coaching centers in Bangalore for GRE?
Yes. So I did my coaching from Princeton Review. And this is the coaching center which was in Jayanagar, and at that time that was the there were two coaching centers. One was Princeton, and they were the ones who were affordable compared to the other ones, so I went to Princeton Review. But I hear that these days there are a lot more coaching centers, so you have options to choose from. So yeah, go through the reviews, talk to people who have been to that coaching center before you zero down on one.
Good, thank you. Second one is, can a student take the internship for 2 terms? Is there?
Yes. So internship, you can do it in summer. So that will be your first internship. That is after let's say you've completed 2 semesters in the United States in your master's program. Then you can do the first internship. And second internship is some of the universities, like some of the universities are okay with you doing an internship in the last semester. That really depends on the university, but that will be the time when you'll do your second internship. So basically, you can do internship for 2 semesters, but keep in mind that the duration has to be less than 1 year. The total duration.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prithviji, for your questions. Thank you, Pooja. We'll come back to chat window now. There's another question from student, seems to be in 12th standard. The question is, what is the process to do CS after 12th in India and further studies after CS and more fields in it?
Okay, if I understand
The
correctly.
question is about what is the process to do computer science after 12th and what are the options after computer science engineer? What are the other fields in it?
It's for undergrad question, I guess.
Oh yeah,
Undergrad.
that's what I was thinking. So if you're finished 12th and you want to do engineering, that is undergrad in the US, all the things still apply to you. But I'm not sure about the GRE. That was something you might want to check if you know someone who has done that. But other than that, most of the things remain same, and you might be looking at a really high fees because engineering in the US costs a lot more than masters because engineering is 4 years. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, Pooja. The next question is from Rashmika Mahinderkar. Do we need letters of recommendation as a part of the application?
Yes, to apply to universities, you need these letters of recommendation. But depending on universities, it's usually like two. Some universities recommend that 2 is enough, and some might require 3 letters of recommendations. But this is a requirement. You absolutely need that.
Okay, there are last 2 questions on chat window, slightly away from the topic, but I'll just mention it. One is from Namya, and her question is, what is the completion statistics in USA? I assume it is a master's completion.
It says competition statistics.
Competition.
So when you mean competition, is it like your acceptance rate to the universities, or once you graduate, is there a competition for the job? Anyways, I'll cover both. So acceptance to university, that rate really depends on your profile, like how strong your profile is. Depends on your CGPA, GPA, or GRE scores, TOEFL scores, letters of recommendations, how strong they are, and how strong is your SOP. Depends on that. But there is a lot of competition. I mean, everybody wants to apply to the universities in the US, and everybody wants to apply to premium universities. So there's quite a bit competition. So keep that in mind. So try to make your profile as strong as possible. So that is one thing. So once you graduate, let's talk about competition for jobs, right? There is immense amount of competition. You will be working with some of the greatest talent from all over the world, right? So when you consider all over the world, there are always people that are really, I mean, smarter to you. So you are competing with all of those people. So you really have to stand out. You really have to prepare well for the interviews, and you really have to know what you have learned in the university and all your internships or from all your projects that you've been doing. So yes, there is a lot of competition in the US.
Thank you, Pooja. Last question from chat, and then we'll move to audience. You can unmute. So this is from Pooja Bedre. The question is, I have applied for MSc in computer science in the UK. But I hear people say UK is not that good for computer science. What's your view on this? Like, it's slightly away from the US topic.
Yes. So I don't really know how the job market is in UK for computer science, but all of the universities, all of the companies that are in the US usually have branches in UK, and usually those branches don't include a lot of engineering jobs, but there are others. But there's also always an opportunity to work for you remote if the company in US accepts. So that is one option. Or the best thing to do is for you to work in the UK a little bit if you find any computer science job, and then you can immigrate to US on L1 visa. So that is something that can be done, but for that you would need to start a job in the United Kingdom.
Great. Thank you again, Pooja, and thank you everyone in the audience for asking these questions. We'll now move to people who would like to unmute themselves. Prachi, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, Pooja.
Hi,
Can
Prachi.
you hear me?
Yes.
So I've completed my master's in marine biology since 2 years back. So now I'm in a teaching field of ICIC school. So I want to continue my master's in research work in USA. So I have completed research in seaweed as fertilizer. So is there a scope in USA on marine research?
Uh, to be completely honest with you, Prachi, I'm not really sure about research opportunities in the US. But I would say that if you are currently working on some sort of research and if you're in some sort of organization, reach out to them and see if there's any counterpart in the US. So that could help you. But otherwise, I don't know a lot about the research in the field of marine biology.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prachi. While we are very close to wrapping it, we'll just take last few questions in another 5 minutes and try to conclude. There are again people are asking slightly not so relevant questions or moving away from the topic, but we will try to come back as a group. So there's one question which asks whether can we cover a webinar on higher studies in Japan. We'll come back in the group later on the WhatsApp. Will confirm. Again, another question: if anyone has done a master's in Japan, we'll skip that. And I think the last question is related to: is there any scope for scholarship from BVI? I think we'll have to come back on that. So what we'll do, we will share our email ID towards the end. If you have any other questions which are not relevant to this topic specifically, but you would like to understand, you can drop us email and we will get back to you on this. With this, Pooja, we are good to wrap. And before that, I would like to hand it back to our host. Priyanka, are you still there?
Yeah, Saik.
Yeah, if you have anything on the agenda, please go ahead. Otherwise, we can come to the vote of thanks.
Yeah, we are good to go. Thank you so much, Pooja. It was a great session.
All right, Pooja, I really enjoyed this session, and I'm very appreciative. We as a group are also very appreciative of the fact that you would have put in a lot of effort to create those slides, put all of this information together in one place, and then weave it together with your own personal experience and share this wealth of information with all of us here in the audience, both parents and students together. And I'm very sure that it will really help some of us who have taken this opportunity to be with you and learn from you today. And once again, thank you very, very much for being with us this evening and doing this session for all of us.
I'd like to
The
add just one more
last,
thing.
Sure.
So
go
if you're
ahead.
thinking about getting a student loan, I mean, I don't know much of the process because my father did the most of the hard work for me. So if you have really questions on how to get student loan and what to do, how to go about it, like my father is the person, and you can contact him directly. His name is Jagdish Doijode, and he's the one raising hand there. So first of all, thank you, Dad, for all your hard work and. So yeah, if you have any questions in that department, please reach out to him.
Okay,
Great.
so thanks. I would share last few views from my side. First of all, thank you, Pooja. This session was, I mean, looking at the interest and the participation, this has actually touched many people, and there were many queries and questions which people were asking, relevant questions that they were asking. So obviously, it means that this session has helped them. And thank you for conducting this session. Secondly, covering all these aspects, like I mean, right from preparation for GRE TOEFL to, like I mean, going up to visa, what are the options which exist for them. I think in short time, in briefly, you have touched every topic. So thanks once again for that. And I want to also take this opportunity to thank every participant who has joined today for learning, understanding, or benefiting, getting benefit out of this session for either themselves or their their kids or whomsoever, right? So thank you once again, and thank you each one of you for that. Um, as BVI Youth Club shared that, we will be sharing this PPT. This will be done it will be sent over WhatsApp in due course of time, right? And Pooja has already given her contact details, LinkedIn and Google ID, so you can reach out to her also. Some questions which were related to studies in India, higher studies in India, Japan. We'll look at whether we can do some sessions around this in the future as we see more interest coming from each one of you, or from most of you. So thank you once again.
Thank you, Sudhir sir. I will now move on to the vote of thanks, and I have got my list here, trying to ensure I cover everyone. Firstly, thank you, Sudhir sir, for putting all of these together. I'm sure you have put efforts behind the scenes to ensure we bring this event to life and make it happen. And followed by Priyanka. She's unfortunately not here with us. She is the national president, BVI Youth Club. She's been
Just
traveling
want
from
to add,
Karnataka.
just want to
Yes,
add
sir.
two more
Please.
people. Our project director Basant Rangdal and Anita Bendre, who have also, sorry, Anita Sarvade, they have also worked along with me on this basically. So I would like to thank them also. I can't skip mentioning their names. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding names, Sudhir sir. And you can feel free to add if there are any I'm missing. And I also thank all of us in the audience who have been great participants. And not last but not the least, our life of the session, Pooja Doijode. Thank you for your time and efforts. With this, we would like to wrap it. You may now feel free to exit the session. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the evening. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.